Good afternoon and welcome. I'm Anna Dangerfield. I'm one of the co-chairs of the Winter Lecture Series along with Lily and Brannon. And on behalf of our president of the Friends of the Aiken County Historical Museum, we would like to welcome you today. And just a few housekeeping details. We have put a survey in everybody's chair, and we would like for you to fill these out before you leave. This gives us a better idea of what you would like to hear. And our mead hall helpers have pencils, so before you leave, please fill out a survey. Alan has some of his books in the gift shop, and he will be glad to autograph them if you would like to purchase one today. And this is my personal favorite. It's a lot of great information about those of us who grew up in Aiken. And he, thanks to Nelson Danish, and he is not here today, but he was here last week. He is the sponsor of our lecture series, and he has been very generous this year. To tell you a little bit about Alan Riddick, I'm sure you have seen him walking up and down Whiskey Road many, many times. So he's our most visual historian in Aiken. He was born in the Aiken County Hospital in 1956, graduated from Aiken High in 1974, and then Clemson University in 1978. He graduated with a degree in Recreation and Parks Administration and later graduated from St. Thomas University in Miami, where he majored in sports administration. He retired from the Health Protection Department at the Savannah River site, and then he went full-time on collecting everything Aiken history. He has served as the president of the Aiken County Historical Society since 1999, and he has secured many of the historical markers that you see around town and in the county, and for that we are very grateful. He preserves Aiken history through his photography, through his writing, and through his memorabilia collection. He has a tremendous collection of bottles, which is wonderful. And he also has photographs of old winter colonists. He has a scrapbook that he has a lot of pictures too, which is a wonderful scrapbook. He also has written, as I showed you, Memories of Growing Up and Living in Aiken, and also Aiken County Schools, A Pictorial History, and more. So we all know Alan. He gives a great historical tour through Hopeland's Gardens, and we would be interested in hearing what you have to say today. Thank you, Alan.
Well, first of all, I've got 3 little stories to tell y'all, and they were from this book, and they were related to Sunday, and so I figured they would be appropriate for this little program. And the first one is really about a memory that I had when I grew up here in the early to late 60s. That was my growing up time here. And one of my Sunday memories was way back when there were hardly any places to eat, especially a nice Sunday meal. And I don't know if some of y'all remember the Heart of Aiken Hotel. If you go out Richland Avenue, and it was right past where Walmart is, the Heart of Aiken Hotel. And the Heart of Aiken Hotel had this little building that had to do with it was just a place to eat a meal. And they served a Sunday buffet. And so, we didn't do that all the time, but that was like a treat when my parents took us to this Sunday buffet. So I'm going to show you a picture of it. I do have a picture of it. That Christ Central is there today. But that building's been there a long time, and that's where we used to eat a Sunday buffet in the 1960s. So that was my Sunday memory. I'm gonna. The next memory will be from Chief Carol Busby. I guess a lot of y'all knew Chief Busby if you lived here any length of time. time holding the book. Well, okay. Hey, just like we're in church there. Let's see. About the only thing Chief Busby is talking about his mother. About the only thing she didn't make were his shoes. In the simpler time when Chief Busby lived, his parents bought him just one pair of shoes in the fall at the start of the school year. Of course, no shoes were needed or worn during the summer except for attending First Baptist Church. So that's another Sunday memory. This is kind of awkward, but we'll get going. Okay. I need to put up the picture. Okay, this is J.M. Fulmer. He, for years and years in Aiken, he ran grocery stores. I think if you lived in Aiken any length of time, you know Mr. Fulmer. And this is important to my little story. So here we go. This is a little bit longer than the last one. Gordon's Grocery, located on Park Avenue, a couple of doors west of where the Aiken Passenger Depot has been rebuilt, sold live chickens from a little chicken coop that was located in front of the store. The transaction went as follows. The customer paid for the chicken and went to the coop and grabbed one. He then tied its feet together and placed the bird in a bag. The bag had a hole in the bottom of it. He placed the bird's head in the hole. He was now ready for what was a walk. Many people didn't have cars back then if you lived downtown. He was ready for a walk back home with an upside down, angry, squawking chicken. Getting the bird home was only half the battle. Once the customer got home, he had to kill, clean, and cook the bird. But this is the rest of the story. Fulmer Jr. recalls the early 1940s when you first could purchase a chicken that was already cleaned. They came from the Jesse Jewell Company in Georgia in barrels packed with ice and were shipped by Railway Express into the Aiken Freight Depot at Park Avenue and Williamsburg Street. Let's see, I lost my place. At first, those chickens could only be purchased on Fridays and Saturdays. Since so many people then had fried chicken for their special Sunday dinner, Mr. Fulmer said chickens were given the nickname gospel birds. So those were the only two Sunday stories in the book. Let me get situated again. Okay, we'll go back the other way. This is the introduction. This presentation will be more about the downtown churches, the older churches in Aiken. So I made this the first slide because, as I said, I didn't know exactly where to put it. But this slide is very important because this was 19th Thanksgiving Day in 1950. You see what it says, AEC to construct a huge plant near Aiken. So the reason this is important is this changed Aiken totally. Aiken was a much smaller town back then, 7,000 people. You didn't have so many churches. You didn't have so many schools. But once all the people that started to work for Savannah River Plant started coming here. All the churches were overcrowded, schools were overcrowded, and and I'm going to show you a few. And there were just so many brand new churches at that point, and even the older established churches had to rebuild or build a new church. So we'll start out with just a few examples of the newer churches. Okay, this is South Aiken Presbyterian. This was a brand new church in I think it was 53 or 54. So there was hardly anything on the south side at that point. But there was plenty of room, and these churches started going to the south side. So this was one of the brand new churches. And this is Bethlehem Lutheran in front of Aiken Estates. This was a brand new church in 1955. And this church is on the other side of Aiken Estates, and I can't quite read the name, and I can't think of it. My mind is a terrible thing. But this was one of those churches that was built in the early 1950s because of the Savannah River Plant. And so those are just three examples of churches that were built. Memorial Baptist was another one, which started out as a mission church for First Baptist Church, but it was brand new in the 1950s. And I will at this point, I will mention the fact that all the established churches except St. Thaddeus practically would eventually build new churches because of all the people coming to Aiken to work at Savannah River Plant. St. Paul's had a new church. We'll see more about these churches later. St. Paul's, First Baptist, St. John's, First Presbyterian, St. Mary's, a little bit later, and Millbrook. So, Savannah River Plant really affected Aiken. So, and it still is, really. I mean, let's see. Okay, y'all have to excuse me. I have to refer to my notes a little bit, but this is the start of all the downtown churches. But this is All Saints Anglican. The original church that was in this building was really called St. Augustine. It was a mission of St. Thaddeus Church. This building was built about 1930 or so. But at first, as I said, it was a mission church of St. Thaddeus called St. Augustine. And it closed. I was told by the people that work at the church, it was closed in the 60s to be used as storage for an antique business, of all things. Dr. Light, he had an antique business, and he used this building. But in 1977, it rose from the ashes, so to speak, and became All Saints Anglican. Some people from St. Thaddeus went there. They were dissatisfied with a couple of things at St. Thaddeus Church. There was a new hymn book about that time, And there was also a lady named Melly Hickey. She had just been ordained, the first woman in the South to be ordained as a preacher. And some people couldn't take that. And we'll talk a little bit more about her later. But that's why some of these people started a new church, started this Anglican church. And one of those people, I have to talk about her now, is Nancy Wilds. If y'all know Nancy. Nancy Wilds was a great artist, and she's still alive and well today. It's hard to believe she's in her 90s, and if y'all know who she is, but she's hanging in. But Mrs. Wilds really helped this church. Wrong way. What Mrs. Wilds did, you see the altar and the pulpit. She found those in Savannah, Georgia. They had come from Kent, England, in a church that was dated back to the 1750s. And that's how old these things are. So there's the altar again. And Mrs. Wilds had purchased these, and that's right when they were starting their church. So she said, "Oh, these will fit perfect into our church." And the pulpit. So that's Mrs. Wilds right there, if y'all don't know her. I asked her to come to the church. It's probably been about 3 weeks ago, and pose for some pictures, since she did all the stained glass work in the church also. She's a very talented lady. I think that's all for that one. Yeah. So now we're on to Cumberland AME Church. This is right off of kind of Richland Avenue. This was organized in 1867. And I still couldn't find an official date when this building was built. According to their history, they had a long period where they used this thing called a brush harbor, where they built with trees and twigs and branches. It's like a shelter. And that was their first church. But according to their history, it was almost 1920 when they built the building. But I can't confirm that, but I know it was late. Okay, has anybody seen this before? This is, now I'm on to First Baptist Church, but First Baptist started from Levels Baptist a long time ago in the early 1800s. And some years ago, this particular area was uncovered because they did a lot of brush clearing. And this is right on Whiskey Road, across from Palmetto, which is about where Levels Baptist Church was supposed to be, in that general area. So some people say this was a cemetery, but it hasn't been proved yet. So I don't know, but I don't know what it could have been if it's not. So, but right now it's being used, that whole area is storage for a landscaping business. It looks kind of rough back there. So, So this was the first. Those people at Levels Baptist, they combined with another church after in the early days before Aiken was Aiken, and this was their first church at First Baptist. It doesn't look like much. And now we're getting into like a real church here. This was 1937, and this was after the railroad had come through Aiken. The people at First Baptist asked for a plot of land, in which they were given a half of a block for their church. So this faced Richland Avenue. So okay, so it stood until 1876, and then it burned, and then this brick structure was built. You know, a lot of things burned in Aiken, and then the second thing to be built was made out of brick. You know, I guess they learned their lesson the hard way. So this was the next church. And so actually this program does not have the current churches, a picture of the current churches. I'm assuming everybody has seen all these churches, so I just didn't, put the current church in here. But this was the next to last church. And 1956 was the year the current church was built for First Baptist. There again, it was because of Savannah River plant. They had so many people, they didn't know what to do except build a new church. And I do have a few pictures. I think Fred does the best sermons, or did the best sermons in town. I really like Fred. And I went to his last service, and that's where I took this picture. And he's greeting a few people. It was kind of traumatic. Like this lady, was kind of upset about him leaving. So, but Fred is a great guy. You still see him walking on Whiskey Road also, so with his two dogs. Okay, we're on to First Presbyterian Church. First Presbyterian. Their first meeting place was in the Aiken City Hall, which was right on the middle of Lawrence Street. This is Lawrence Street, and this was the City Hall, and they would have met on the second story, second floor. And today, this would be about where the alley, where the road goes into the alley. So I don't know why they made buildings back then on the middle of the street, but and this is a kind of different picture of the First Presbyterian Church. What did I do? I'm sorry. Yeah. Uh, I haven't heard that name. I'm not by any means an expert on this subject. I just put this together and, you know. Yeah, right. Okay. What you have here is a picture. This is actually Park Avenue. This is Park Avenue right here. And this is where the First Presbyterian Church was located. But I have more pictures of this. And this is also Park Avenue, which I think is really incredible when you consider what it looks like today with the parks in it and the roads on either side. I think this picture is about where Hudson Etheridge Insurance is today. So it's just wide open. And this was actually the church, and they had a preacher's house right there. And this is a good picture of the church, a real photograph. I just like these old pictures because this is Park Avenue right there. All the little weeds and stuff. And this is a side view of the church. So you can see it's not very big. Just like all the churches. I mean, they all started out very small, as you will see in these pictures coming up. And they eventually would grow. But they were beautiful churches. And this was that first church was built in 1859. And this was their kind of modern building. This was built in 1925. This is the church. This is the church that I remember growing up. Being downtown a good bit. And but again, this was a nice church, a little bigger. Getting more people in the church. And this happy couple was married at First Presbyterian Church. Strawn Thurman and his bride Nancy. There's Nancy up there on the wall. Hey, Nancy. So a friend gave me that picture, and he's passed away, so I guess I can use it now. So. All right, we're on to the synagogue. I thought it was interesting in the history of the synagogue and the Jewish people. The first church location was in the upstairs of a store building in downtown Aiken, and I found that fact out too late to go investigate which store it was, but I'm sure Steve Silver on the right, who's the president of the synagogue, probably would know that. And the guy on the left is one of the lay people that actually conduct services. The synagogue is actually too small to have a rabbi, so they have two lay people that actually do the services. They have a student rabbi, and every now and then they have a visiting rabbi. So they're covered, but it's still a small church or a small synagogue. And I will also mention they did use. There's a Masonic lodge in downtown Aiken. And they also used that Masonic lodge as their synagogue until they could build this in 1925. Yeah, they're on their 100th anniversary this year. They have a pretty big celebration planned. And they actually did not come. They, as a kind of as a group, they weren't in Aiken until about they organized in 1921. So 4 years ago they had that 100-year celebration, and this year they'll celebrate the actual building of the synagogue. Okay. This is Friendship Baptist Church on Richland Avenue. I guess if y'all follow the news, they've been in the news a good bit lately for their parsonage, which will be allowed to be moved. I hate that. But anyway, this was their church was organized in 1866. So I guess if that date rings a bell, it's the year after 1865, after the Civil War. Same thing with Cumberland AME Church. So organized in 1866, and they built a church. They didn't have a brush harbor. They went ahead and built a church, and their first church was a wooden church, and it did burn in 1893. And then this is amazing to me. By early 1894, they had this church built, this brick building. I mean, that was pretty quick work. And this church was designed by a local architect named Siberia Ott. I don't know much about him. Actually, I didn't know if he was a man or a woman at first, but I figured it had to be a man back then, because women wouldn't probably have the chance to do something like that. And this is a picture I think is interesting. I did a little research into this thing. This is Friendship Baptist Church, probably in the teens or so. And you see all the people out front, and you see the sign on the church. It says Black Billy Sunday. There was a famous white evangelist named Billy Sunday. So come to find out, there were 7 Black Billy Sundays who were kind of noted. They took use of his name, but put the black in front of it just so they could kind of get a foothold to wherever they were going. But Black Billy Sunday, the one I think that went here, was a famous evangelist, especially in the South and the West. And let's see. Can't read my notes. I'll talk about Billy Sunday also. Billy Sunday was a white guy, and he was an ex-baseball player, but he became an evangelist. And like I say, some others took liberty with his name, but put black on even though they had a whole different name. So Black Billy Sunday was in Aiken. That's he in the teens. So I thought it was interesting. And this is the parsonage in question at Friendship Baptist Church that they will now be allowed to move. This, I mean, to me, it's historic because it's part of the fabric of the church. You have the parsonage and the church, but This photo is actually from the 20s. This kind of right after it was built. It was built by Schofield students and their instructor. And so that's how it goes. They're going to move it, and somebody's going to fix it up, and it'll be a nice house. It's really nice inside. And this is an odd picture that I just happened to. Anna mentioned the scrapbook I had from the winter colony, and this picture was in this scrapbook. And the people at Friendship claim that this is where they did their baptisms way back when, before they did them at the church. So it says Negro Baptismal Font. So, and we believe it was up near Coker Springs. That you have Coker Springs down here by the road, but then above Coker Springs there's a area, and I think that's where this was, right above Coker Springs. And this is actually a modern picture of Friendship Baptist Church. I happened to be there, going over there one day in the morning. I had to take a picture. Actually, over at Cumberland Baptist, I had to go take a picture of the preacher there. So for some reason, I walked over to Friendship, and they were about to do a baptism. So I took this picture of the baptism in Friendship Baptist Church. He's about to dunk the guy. This is actually, you see where the pool is, that is actually where the preacher would stand. They just closed the doors, and it's got carpet on it. I never knew it was there till I happened to show up on that day. And I think it's pretty cool. And this is another picture from Friendship Baptist. The reason I put this in here, because I want to mention, all these churches in Aiken do a lot of good for a lot of people, whether it be a soup kitchen or donations of money or you name it, they do it. And I just happened to go over there to Friendship Baptist one day, and this is the group that does their soup kitchen once a month. They serve meals for people, and they teach them a little gospel and a little Bible lesson, and they also give away clothes. Also, they have another group that helps them, and they give away clothes. So it's a pretty big day, food and clothes, and you get a little Bible lesson. But I will have to qualify the statement when I say soup kitchen. This is a lot better than a soup kitchen. You should have smelled that food. It was that was. I wish I could have asked them if I could have eaten lunch there. So it was. Mistake. I have another synagogue picture. Okay. All right. We're going to the south side. Most of my program has been about downtown churches, but I really want to include Millbrook because Millbrook is such to me, an important church today, big church. And way back when, that Millbrook area was just way out in the country. You didn't think about going over to Millbrook for anything because you were down in downtown Aiken. You didn't worry about Millbrook, and they had their own church. They had eventually they had schools, Millbrook Elementary, which is still there. But that area has always been important. A lot of important people came from there. The Burkhalters and others lived in that area. And this was their church, their very first church, 1886. And after a few expansions, they you can tell where the original church was and then where the add-ons were. But they do have a cemetery there, which has all these important early people in Aiken, the Burkhalters, I said, and a few other people. And this was their church in 1962. There again, Savannah River plant coming to town greatly increased the population at practically every church in town. And this, I will say this about Millbrook. They have 3 churches to maintain. I don't have a picture of the big church, but that's a lot of property to maintain, I think. But they do it. And they have all kind of other, they have a daycare there. And it's a big operation at Millbrook. So. Okay, we're going to St. John's now. St. John's was, of course, right downtown. This was their actually second building. I've never seen a picture of the first building. They supposedly had a small chapel that was about where this one was. This is facing Richland Avenue right here. This is Richland Avenue. This is probably Newberry Street right here. So it's a beautiful church again. And I got this picture by looking for another picture. But you see the church, St. John's, and this is Richland Avenue. But I was looking for this picture for so long. This is colonial. This is the first modern grocery store in Aiken. This is where the pool hall used to be, or the pool hall is today. And anyway, so that's okay. We're on to the Catholics now. Let me go back. And I do want to mention St. John's has this new thing. It was built in 2014. It's called the Faith Center. It's more for their contemporary service and for their youth. But it's a separate building. It's not in the church. I don't know if y'all have ever seen it. But if you go and try and park in back of the church, you would see it. But I went over there the other day for the first time, and it's really a nice building, and it would be something good for what I mentioned, contemporary service and something for their youth. Okay, we're on to the St. Mary's now, St. Mary's Catholic. And this was their first church. There again, we start out small. And if if y'all have ever been into their current church, it's huge. You get lost in there almost. It's just big. But this was their first church. And supposedly, this was near the railroad cut. And supposedly during the storm, it fell into the railroad cut. I don't know if that's true or not. But that's what they claim in their literature. Anyway. So that was in the late 1870s whenever this fell into the railroad cut. And then the winter colony came to the rescue of St. Mary's. A lady named Celestine Eustace. There she is right there on the wall up here. See on the wall? she was very, very wealthy, and she was a really ardent Catholic. And she said, "I'm going to help you build a church." So and with that, she paid for the second church to be built. And that was the second church, but I have a better. This is an older picture of it from the 1890s. But I think it's the prettiest church in town. It's very small, St. Clair's Chapel, but it is pretty, and it was, I have to give you this detail. It was designed by a man named James Renwick. James Renwick. He designed St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York City, and he also designed the Corcoran Art Gallery in Washington, D.C. So that man, famous architect and designer, came to Aiken and made this church. I'm assuming he visited Aiken. I don't know, but he could have done this in his office probably. But it's a beautiful church. It's got all the detail, just all the detail, the windows, just everything is just beautiful about it. And and even inside, I mean, this is pretty. I mean, you see what did I do? Okay, I'm sorry. But you see this nice ceiling and this, I almost said stained glass, but these windows in this church are painted glass. Painted. It's not stained glass. It's painted by hand. And artists did that. So there, I think I have a little closer picture. But that's done by hand right there. And this is right here in Aiken, South Carolina. That is just a work of art right there. And even the little windows on the side, they were painted also. So it's just a beautiful place. And I will mention this about the chapel, though. They have this program called Perpetual Adoration, where they have somebody in that building 24/7, either most of the time praying. So that's why you can always get in there, because somebody's in there. So you can go in there and look at it anytime you want. But it's as I said, it's a beautiful place. And this is a picture postcard of the 1905 St. Mary's edition. There again, to me now, this church looks huge, but the seating inside is kind of small, kind of limited. It's a beautiful church, but a friend of mine that goes there, before they built their current church, they would have like 6 or 7 services here. Before they built their Family Life Center, they built a Family Life Center where they had to start having services because they got so many people. And so it's a good place for a wedding, I guess, or other kind of service. But this is just a nighttime picture of the church. I think there again, this is a beautiful church. All the churches in Aiken are really beautiful, and we're just so fortunate to have all of them. Okay, we are on St. Paul's. St. Paul's Lutheran Church. And this was their first first church. It was just a little chapel. There again, we're starting out small, and we're going to work our way up to a bigger church. So this was actually in Bethany Cemetery, if y'all know where Bethany is. So this was only there for a couple of years until they moved to what's Pendleton Street. Man, okay, that's what I get for not writing it down. So their second church was, this is Pendleton Street Church. You know, just your basic, this was still a nice basic church. And at their current church, this is the baptismal font for that other church, for this church. And the thing about it, it kind of looks like it's made out of marble or something, but it's made out of wood. Somebody made that thing. So pretty interesting. And this was their church, their third one, 1953. There again, Savannah River Plant caused, people to build new churches, add on to others. And the man most associated with his church, we're lucky to have his children here. I have to introduce Lily. Raise your hand. Lily and Johnny, right there. This is the man most associated with St. Paul's Lutheran. He was there for 32 years. As far as I know, he was a preacher longer than about anybody in Aiken. I don't know that for a fact, but most people don't last more than 20 years or so. But I do have to remind you about this book. Lily wrote this book about her father and some of his sermons, so it is for sale in the gift shop here. So, but everybody called him Padre. I remember his car. Growing up, he had Padre on his license plate. So, and back then I used to run too. When I would see him a good bit, he'd be out in the yard. The course where I used to run went right by their house, and I always would see Padre out in the yard. So he was just a good guy. And I will mention Reverend McCullough. He served 5 years in the war, World War II. I thought that was pretty amazing. He worked 1 year as a preacher at St. Paul's, and then he was off to the war for 5 years. And I guess they held his place for him. So he came back and did 31 more years at St. Paul's. So kind of amazing. Okay, we're getting on close to the end. This is St. Thaddeus Episcopal Church. This is one of the oldest pictures that you will ever see about Aiken. This is from like 1870. It was and what I love about these old pictures is the fact that this is Richland Avenue right here, or right there, and it doesn't quite look like that today. And you will notice on this when this church was built, it was built in cornerstone was laid in 1842. The church was completed by September, October of 1843. So that was still pretty fast. What I want to say about that is the fact that you don't see a completed steeple with a cross on it. Their big thing back then, this was either $4,000 or $14,000. I couldn't. There were two figures. I had this book. It's pretty interesting, and it's got the early history of the church. But one of the stories in the book talks about the fact that they didn't have enough money. They weren't going to borrow any money to complete the steeple of the church. So that's how it stayed until 1925. So. And this is another stereo view of St. Thaddeus from the front. And this is a photo of inside the original church. Inside the original church. For those that have been in the church here, this is about where the pulpit would be today, about where this is right here. Okay, these are the two plans. This is the one on the left. This is the original church, and you see this is about what the original church was, and then when it was expanded, all they did to expand their church was knock out the back wall and add about 40 feet to the church. You know, in that 40 feet, they added an altar, a choir where the choir sits, a couple of offices. So all of this right here was what the addition was. And also, the addition took away, they had a balcony. Let me go back. You see in this picture, this is the balcony came all the way along the side of the church, which it no longer does. So on both sides. Oops, going the wrong way. So you can see the addition. And this is a current picture. And you know, none of this was there originally. And these beautiful stained glass windows for memorials were added, and it's just a real nice church. Even though we don't have stained glass windows, it's just a nice church. And this is part of the architect's work in 1925. The original church just had one front door, but now it has the 3 doors in front. And it had a door on the side, on each side originally. And those doors are no longer there. It's hard to see them in the photograph, so you just have to take my word for it. Yes. I will tell you about this. I was going to tell you, it's still funny. When they added the steeple on the 1925 addition to the church, they were still conscious of money. And the original, or the steeple, was supposed to get 2 stages, 1 and 2. added, and then the steeple, right? So they said, well, we just don't have quite the money. So they just did one stage instead of two. That's hard to believe when we borrow all kind of money today. But the addition was $40,000. And as I said, the original church, I'm going to say it was 14,000. I don't think it was 4,000. But I will tell you also that Mrs. Aiken is supposedly the one who paid for the church. She donated William Aiken's widow. William Aiken died before he could come to Aiken, and the town was named for him. So what happened after they named the town for him? She donated money after the town had started to grow a little bit. She donated money so a church could be built, but it was never really, look at me. She did it in quiet, gave it to the diocese. Okay, I showed you Friendship Baptist a few slides back, but St. Thaddeus has their soup kitchen every Saturday. They do a lot of work, and the reason I put this picture in here, well, to highlight them, because they do a lot of work. The way that St. Thaddeus does it, they have a team to do the first Saturday, a team for the second, third, and fourth, and so on. But this particular team, this was like 2 days or the day after Hurricane Helene hit. They were there at the church. It looks like there's light on in the church, but there was no light, and just a lot of windows. So this was at the parish hall, and they were, these people are really dedicated to helping the community, and the thing about St. Thaddeus too, it uses gas, so they could cook food, But here I think they're making sandwiches. That was part of the deal. They give people sandwiches too, so they do great. All right, now I have to tell y'all a little story. People that go to St. Thaddeus know about this. But you see that column on the left? It was starting to maybe slip out of its place, so to speak. And if it had come out of its place, that wouldn't have been a good thing. So what the church had to replace that column. This is under the subject of, if you have a historic building, you have to keep it up, and you have to do right by the building. So this is before they started work. This is with the column, and I've got a few pictures as we went along. You see, they had to brace it underneath to hold it up, that side of the building up before they could take the column out. So then they started to remove the column. But you look up there, these columns, all they have is brick inside. They were built with brick, and then the outside of it was stuccoed to give it that look right there. So this was crazy how they did building back then, but it's lasted this long. And I wanted to show you this. This is these are the steps, and just look how they constructed. And this is the porch, and look how they constructed underneath. It's kind of crazy. And I took this picture. This was a shoe that had disintegrated. So it was probably 100 years old because the addition of the church was in 1925, 26. So that chute might be 100 years old right there. So, and now they're starting to restore the column or the base of it. You see, they're going to build the column straight up from here. And so what happened, once they got that base built, this is a steel pole right there. They put that pole in there. And then once they got that pole in there, they get to it. Then they built it up with cement. I guess it's cement around it, and gradually got it to the size of the other columns. So this was quite a little work that had to be done. So now you can see how they've shaped this column to look like the other columns. They just completed it. Yeah, but this has been going on for about 3 months, 3 or 4 months. And where were y'all? Yeah, that's right. And there you go. It's almost finished, but I will say this about that. $14,000 for the original church, $40,000 for the addition or the renovation in 1926. And I don't even know if I should tell you the price for it was a lot of money. A lot of money. So luckily the church members stepped up because they did the right thing. They were taking care of their historic building. So that's kind of a side story, but I think it's important because, you got to take care of these places. And I just want to go talk about the cemetery for a couple of minutes. St. Thaddeus Cemetery was originally, anybody would be buried in there. It was like a city cemetery in the early days of Aiken. And I just have a few pictures of the cemetery. It's a beautiful old cemetery. I have a lot of nice graves. I'm just glad I'm not in there yet. So then you wouldn't have this show, right? But anyway, I do have a plot in the ash garden Actually, I had a picture of it where I was going to be buried, but something happened to it. I don't know what happened to it. So we're on to this. This is the grave of John Cornish. John Cornish was the rector at St. Thaddeus from 1846 to 1869. And he did one important thing besides being a rector, I guess. He kept a diary of his years at St. Thaddeus. It's really fascinating to read. This particular book has a lot of it in it. So, but he kept a diary, and I'm going to read a little bit of it. But the Battle of Aiken, there's a lot of firsthand information about the Battle of Aiken in his diary. It's really amazing. Some of the soldiers on that first 2 days of battle, that first day was on a Sunday, and he notes the soldiers coming in to the church before the battle, just all kind of stuff. And then eventually the battle began. He talked about the charge and the cavalry horses and all that stuff. Pretty interesting. But later that day, the Confederates pushed the Yankees back to Polecat Pond, which is Montmorency, for those that don't know. So the Yankees went back to Montmorency, and they would come back for a second day. But after that first day, I have to read this for you, show you the picture. These were two of the soldiers that were killed on that first day of the Battle of Aiken, and they're buried in St. Thaddeus Cemetery. I have to read this to you. 5 of the wounded were brought to my house and were brought to my house. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't write. Where the surgeons attended to them, and Rhoda and Maddie and I did what we could for them. 2 of the killed were taken to the churchyard where they were put in coffins and buried. I said the burial service over them. So, I mean, that's first-hand stuff right there. I think it's just important. And I don't know, I wish Pete Peters was here. I don't think these were the gravestones for them back then, but at some point they were given a proper headstone. Okay, I'm gonna read something to you right now. I'm gonna let Anna be my. Hold on one second. Then I'm gonna get back to Mississippi here. This is just but it's related to church. Okay. Yeah. Okay. This is about a guy named Reverend Jeter, who was the rector at St. Thaddeus. Mr. Jeter is probably best remembered by the youth of 1910 for his efforts among the young people, although the fraternizing with ruffians at the local drugstore, soda fountain, and his card playing are said to have offended some. He is so credited with having brought many strays back into the flock. Others were offended when his wife, trying to make ends meet, baked and sold bread to augment the rector's salary. Things are a little different today. Anna says I need to hurry up. Okay. So we're on Melly Hickey. Earlier I mentioned the Anglican Church that was founded because some people were dissatisfied with the prayer book for St. Thaddeus. They got a new prayer book at that time. And then Melly Hickey had the nerve to get ordained as a woman preacher. Imagine that. So, I mean, she was a great lady, and that was just something you didn't do back then. And as this says, the first woman in the South to be ordained. And she was the wife of Howard Hickey, who was the rector at St. Thaddeus. And that's a picture of them. Their son, Howard, is alive and well today. And that we just have a couple more little churches, then we'll be finished. Okay, this is Second Baptist Church. This was organized in 1904 in a house on Florence Street, of all things. But it would be almost 20 years before they built their church. So surely they would have had enough people to meet somewhere else, maybe some meeting house or something. But Second Baptist was built in 1925, and it was their pastor at the time was Jesse Miles, and Jesse Miles also designed the church. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And originally, when I did a smaller version of this program, I thought these were the same church buildings, but no, that is not the case. This building right here was the second Emmanuel Presbyterian Church, and this was on the property where the African American Center is today. They had another church that burned, and then this one was built, and this one was moved. It is still standing, believe it or not, but it doesn't look much like the church it used to look like. This is the children's place, where they have it on, can't even think of the name of the street, off Barnwell Avenue. So, but that is the church. It was greatly altered. And this church, Wesley United Methodist, and this was built in 1886, and it is still standing. I went to a service there one day and took some pictures, and but Aiken has so many churches. I think we could be called the Holy City, really, rather than Charleston. Okay, and I'm almost done. Okay, I have to have Dr. E.J.C. Wood in the program. Dr. E.J.C. Wood moved to Aiken when he was 26 years old, and with his mother, and he owned several stores. And one of his stores, he was asked to carry drugs by a local doctor, so he did. But at that point, because he had drugs, he was considered a druggist. So people started calling him Dr. Wood, Dr. E.J.C. Wood. And Dr. Wood was very important to Aiken because he was like a Chamber of Commerce kind of guy. Got Mr. Jameson back there. But he advertised Aiken all up in the northern part of the country to get people to come down here for their health and well-being. But he was very important in that. And as far as the church part of his career, he was the chairman of the building committee for St. John's Church, and he also drew up the plans for St. John's Church. I don't think he was an architect by trade, but he did that. And also he was on the building committee for First Pres Church. So he was quite the guy. When he was 51 years old, he married a 21-year-old, and they had 5 children. So that's we're getting close. I think this is it. I mentioned earlier Siberia Ott, kind of odd name, but his home and gardens were on that block where First Baptist Church is, and this is a picture of his home. And I think he's in the photograph right there. He was a little camera shy, I believe. But that's what people did back then. They stood way off from the camera. But this was on that block, kind of in the parking area where First Baptist Church is today. So with that, I'm going to quit. Okay.